Hey guys, it's your boy, excuse me, it's just Ballface8020, back again with another great commentary. So I got a comment today from a viewer who was actually responding to a comment that I had made in response to another one of his comments, just saying that he was at a stage in his life where he felt trapped. He felt like he couldn't quit his job, even though he hates it, because he didn't think he'd be able to find anything else. And that he was suicidal, but he can't commit suicide because he didn't have the guts, for lack of a better word, to go through with it. And I've been there with both of those things, so I totally know what it feels like. In fact, it was a few weeks ago that it only lasted for like a week, a little bit less than a week, where I was in a depression that was like super deep. And it was the most depressed I'd been in years. It was really bad. And in some ways, it was one of the worst depressive episodes I've ever had. I wouldn't call it the worst, but it was up there in some ways in terms of like sort of, because it was like a mixture of depression plus like existential stuff. That's kind of hard for me to explain. I mean, I guess I could sort of kind of explain it, but it gets to a point where it's more personal than I like, and it's not like, I don't think I could really do it justice anyway. The thing is, it's like, but when I don't know, let's just talk first thing about the whole thing of being trapped in the job. Yeah, no, I know what that's like. I've felt that way before. I don't like, it's always tough to give advice. I've mentioned this before. It's always tough to give advice. It's really tough to give advice over the internet because you just don't know a lot about people's situations. Generally, what they say is, if your job is really damaging your mental health, then leave. Now, easier said than done. It's like, who knows all the dynamics? Like, it could be putting you into an even worse situation. For me, that's tended to be like, and as somebody who has been stuck in jobs, that has been the way I've dealt with it in the more recent part of my life. I've just decided that, like, this guy might be younger than me, I don't know. But, like, I decided probably sometime a few years ago where it was just like, if the job is, like, really causing me, like, a lot of, like, distress, then it gets to, like, I'm just not going to do it. And for me, there is no such thing as being trapped in a job. Because it's like, it gets to a point where there's no deterrence factor. Like, sleeping, like I've like got to a point where I've accepted, like, okay, if me leaving this job means I'm sleeping on the sidewalk for the rest of my life, so be it. That there are certain things that I'm not going to do to survive. There's certain things I'm not willing to do, period. And one of them is working a job that you hate. That's life. But it depends on how much you hate it. If you hate it so much that it's miserable and it's making your life torture, no, fuck it. I'll sleep on the sidewalk. That's fine. Now, for me, it's easier to say for a couple of reasons. One is, between me working part-time, a job that I can handle because it's part-time, it's very flexible. If I wasn't working the job I have now, I would be unemployed because there's no way I could hold any other job. This is like one of the few jobs that is easy enough and has like enough flexibility, enough stability plus flexibility that I can do it because I need a job. It has to be the same hours every day. So I can't work any job where there's a different schedule every week. I cannot do that. It has to be the same hours every day. And it has to have, it doesn't have to be Saturday and Sunday, but it has to have 2 straight days off every week. And they have to be the same days. And it has to be a job that's okay with me coming in late, because I mean, not every day, but a lot of times I am late. And so that takes away like a lot of retail jobs. Like if you want to work at like a supermarket or something, or a Best Buy, you can't be coming in 15 minutes late ever, let alone several times a week. Because that's somebody else's shift. And it's got to be a job okay with me missing time, me calling out of work. Now, I've gotten way better ever since the ketamine. I've gotten better on showing up on time and not missing time. I've gotten better, but I'm not perfect at it. And I'm still not good enough that I'd be able to work at a McDonald's or a Best Buy or anything. I would be late too often, because you can't really be late ever in those jobs. And I would miss too many days, because you can't miss really any unless you've, done it like a week or 2 weeks in advance. So anything where like attendance is like super important, can't do it. Anything that's any more than 5 hours a day, can't do it. And now the work can't be too physical, just because I'm physically too tired to do it. I would actually prefer something more physical if possible. But basically you get the idea. Like I cannot hold a job in this state. Now, like I said, I'm improving. Maybe in like 6 months I'll be able to, which is further along than I thought I'd be, but whatever. But between this part-time job I have now, which does not pay much, between the part-time job I have now and the money I've got from my inheritance, I've done the math, and I can probably keep it going for like another 10 years. At the end of that 10 years, it's pretty much over for me. It's not like there's no way for me to continue to support myself, and I will be living on the street. I will be homeless. My parents are gone. There's nobody else to ask for help. I would never ask my siblings for help, and they would never give it. Anyway, I mean, they're already pissed at me for how much of the inheritance that I got, as opposed to them. And just because my mom knew that I'd never be able to support myself. So that at that point it's over for me. Now, however, I personally believe, me being Jewish, that the Messiah is going to be here in a few years, which means, again, me as a Jewish person, I won't have to work anyway. You guys, I don't know. You'll probably still have to work, but at least it'll be better than it is now. But so I'm assuming that in a few years that issue's been solved for me. However, people have been predicting the Messiah forever, for like at least since, 100 BC. And so far, he hasn't come 100% of the time. So I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Maybe the Messiah isn't coming, and in which case that, so much for the whole not working thing, right? That means, if that hasn't happened, yeah, I'm out of money in 10 years. So what happens then? Well, I'm gonna be homeless. And, so it's like, I think what this guy is saying, he was talking about how, he'd kill him. It sounds like what he's saying is he'd kill himself, but he just can't go through with it. And I've definitely been there. And that goes back to what I was saying. I think I was talking about this earlier. I already forget. About how, it was a few weeks ago, things had gotten to that point. Now, there was no point, as depressed as I was, there was no point that I was thinking about killing myself. There was no point that I was actually considering going through with killing myself. However, it was bad enough that I started thinking just about suicide, which I hadn't thought about in years, and thinking about how I would do it if I could. And what I noticed is, and part of this is coincidence, I think I was turning a corner anyway, because I know that the worst was already over by this point. But once I started reading about ways to kill myself, I started to feel better. And I think it's because, and I think this happens to a lot of people, just like feeling like that option is there, like gets rid of the trapped feeling, and then you're able to see things clearer. And I wonder if maybe that's part of the problem with this guy, like part of his stress. Like if he had access to, what they call the peaceful pill, like the pill that, some people who will make them, will make them at home. There is supposedly a way to do it. I don't know how. But supposedly it can be done. It kills you painlessly. And if he had access to that, I wonder if he'd still be suicidal. I think there's a lot of people out there who wouldn't feel that way. If and I've heard it, they've even used this in treatment sometimes, just saying they'll tell some people who are desperate enough, look, worst case scenario, you can just off yourself. Okay. But let's put that aside for the moment. And just knowing that that option exists will make some people feel better. Now, there's a lot of people who would just be like, okay, great, give me the pill. And, there's definitely been times in my life where I would have been there, but that's, just one thing. So, like, I don't know. It's like a scary thing to give advice about, because the last thing you want to do is lead somebody down a path that they start researching the stuff and then they do it. But I think it's more about, because definitely don't do that. One of the criticisms, or one of the don't kill yourself things that I heard somewhere once was the reason that we would each situation is unique, but the reason that we advise that we are very cautious about suicide, or that we should be cautious about suicide, is because it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Like, whatever you're dealing with, as horrible as it is, and I don't want to play it down because I've dealt with horrible shit too, and the bad stuff I've dealt with is nothing compared to what some other people have. But however bad it is temporary. That's just a fact. Whereas killing yourself, that's permanent. It doesn't necessarily mean that, at all times and all places that you just say, okay, well, that means you should absolutely never kill yourself under any circumstances. But there are times where it theoretically, at least, could make sense. It depends. But that is, it's still, like what I said about the whole temporary, permanent solution to a temporary problem is factually correct. Without trying to play down the severity of what somebody could be going through. So I do think part of it, though, is anything you can do to make yourself feel like you're not stuck, like you're not trapped anywhere, like that you don't have to live. You're not being, you don't want to get into that situation where you're being forced to live against your will. You want it to be like, okay, I'm alive and this is my decision, like one way or the other. So that's like, I do think that can relieve a lot of the pressure, and understanding that, but on the other hand, being trapped in it, there really is something good about being trapped in, because if I wasn't trapped in my life, there were plenty of times where I would have done it. I would have killed myself. And that would have been a bad thing. Like, I'm genuinely happy that I didn't. I know that when you're in a suicidal mindset, it's not always, things don't always seem clear. So it's tough. I can't give I can't really give advice about that stuff, because I just don't know. You don't know what somebody's going through, and you don't know what the right thing is to do. However, one thing that I can give advice about is, like me, I'm not going to tell you not to call a suicide helpline. I never have. Like me, I wouldn't advise somebody not to do it, but I wouldn't advise somebody to do it, because I've never done it. And I've never been in a situation where I thought it would be helpful, because I don't need somebody to talk me off the ledge. Okay. Somebody who wouldn't even really understand. What I needed is fixing whatever was fucking wrong. And, nobody over the phone is going to be able to do that. I do think if you're in that situation where, you're having suicidal ideation. So suicidal ideation doesn't necessarily mean that you're actively planning it, that you're actually planning to go through it. You might be 100% certain I could never go through with it, but you're still thinking about it. That's suicidal ideation. So there you got a couple options. One is you could check yourself in to a hospital. I came pretty close to doing that a few weeks ago. I know with money, it's a problem. It is an option. The other is you could go see somebody, and there really are medications that can make a difference. I know that when you're in suicidal places, it feels like there's no way medication could help, but often that's not the case. Often it's way more chemical than you realize, because I know it doesn't feel that way. It doesn't feel chemical. It feels like it's all real, but that's kind of part of what the chemicals do. They make it feel like it's real problems problems that are maybe more real than they seem. Because I will say this: if your brain is like functioning, if your like chemicals are all right, that there's nothing chemically wrong with your brain, and you're not like in physical pain or something, and you're not like starving to death or whatever, or just in like incredible grief over like losing a child or something like that. If it's not like in like those extreme outlier horrible situations, there's no reason that you would want to kill yourself. Okay, you might be like kind of bored. You might just be like, this is boring, but you won't actually want to die. You might even be a situation where like you could have death coming, and then you might even be like, whatever, I had a good run. But if you actually like want to die, that means there's something, chemically wrong. Generally speaking, there are exceptions, I know that, but generally speaking, there's something chemically wrong. So medications could potentially help. The other thing is, I mentioned ketamine. Again, I know it's tough with the money. It's not always possible because the health insurance usually won't pay it, at least not until my understanding is health insurance won't pay for it until they've seen at least 2 antidepressants fail. And they're going to want like 8 weeks of trying for both of them. So that's like 4 months away. So, and if you're suicidal, 4 months you probably don't feel like you can make it 4 months. And that's even if that's going to happen. So ketamine, if you can afford it, I would give it a try. Like if you're thinking about, if you're suicidal and thinking about and having suicide ideation, and you think you can afford it, then give ketamine a shot if you have access to it. The other thing is, I've mentioned this before, is mushrooms or psychedelics. Now, those, I didn't realize this, but if you live in the continental U.S., you can make it to Oregon. You can probably buy a plane or a bus, not a plane ticket because that would be expensive, but a bus ticket or a train ticket, or even just rent a car and drive to Oregon and get like therapy with psychedelic mushrooms. And it's expensive too, but it's not ketamine. Like a full treatment of ketamine is going to be 6 sessions, $1,000 a session, plus the rides to and from. You're going to be, by the time all's said and done, you're going to spend over $7,000. But mushrooms, like, that you only need like 1 session, and it's like it's like probably like $200 plus whatever it costs you to get to and back from Oregon. So it's much more affordable. So I would say before like even doing anything with suicide, before even thinking about anything like that, see if there's something you can do to, like put your mind more at ease first, because like you want to be thinking clearly, especially if that is a path you want to go down. You want to be doing it with a clear mind and make sure that you're not just, making a huge mistake. I mean, again, obviously my advice is always going to be, don't do it. Don't kill yourself. Hang in there. One thing that, like, here's what stopped me is at different points is 2 different things. One is just not having the guts to do it. Like the only time I've really tried to kill myself, I tried to do it via, you can see my suicide video. I tried to technically it was from hanging, but really it wasn't, because hanging to me still means it cuts off your air. And I used a necktie, tied it around the banister, but I wasn't trying to cut off my air. I was trying to cut off my blood circulation. I was leaning backwards, not forward. And it was just like, if you see in the video, it was way more painful than I expected. And lots of pressure. I definitely understand why those guys in those chokeholds in MMA tap out, because the pressure is very painful. And it's just fucking scary, just knowing that like this is the end. It's so fucking scary. And at least for me it was. But so for me, that's what stopped me the first time. The only time really that I really tried it was just fear. Like when it got down to the actual moment of truth, the fear was just too much. The mixture of the fear plus the pain was just too much. I still think if it wasn't for the pain, I could have done it. It would have been tough, but I could have done it. If it had just been the fear by itself, I could have done it. But the fear plus the pain, it was too much. It made fear worse, and then it turns to panic, and then you couldn't do it. But there have been other times where I did want to end it, and I didn't even try. But it wasn't so much of like the immediate fear of death. It was just this feeling like, how do I know that what's waiting for me on the other side isn't even worse than what I had that here? Because I don't care how bad it is. It can always be worse. At least in this world, it can always be worse. Maybe you get to a world where things are truly as bad as they possibly can be. But that's a whole different problem. So I don't like. I think that there's a lot of people who with both of those things, that would keep them from doing it. And again, it's probably, as unpleasant as it is, it's probably a good thing, because if it wasn't, you'd have like tons of people, like you'd probably have like 10 times the amount of suicides you do now. So it's a healthy instinct for society at large, I guess. So yeah, insofar as I have any advice, it's first of all, don't kill yourself. Second of all, see if there's anything you can do to not feel like trapped in life, not feel like you're living because you're afraid to kill yourself, not to feel like it really is your choice to get to that point. So that goes like anything you can to like get rid of anxiety and stuff like that. And I know that a lot easier said than done, but that goes to the next thing, which is, sorry about that. I'm having some phone stuff here. That goes to the next thing, which is, getting psychological help, and, if possible, getting on a medication, like finding a doctor who specializes in suicidal thoughts, see if there's anything medication-wise they can do. And then the next thing would be, again, like psychedelics, which I really think is going to be the future of anti-suicide therapy. I know ketamine's not possible for everybody, but it might be possible to get what do you have? To get those mushrooms things, like the mushroom psychedelics. Another thing you can do is, if you don't want to go all the way to Oregon, you can join a psychedelic meetup in a place near you and make connections with people there and find out where you can buy them in your own area. You can also try growing them in your own place. I've tried doing it, and it didn't work. So it's, good luck. You can give it a shot if you want. And then there was one other thing. Oh, and if you just need like instant relief, what can help is if you go on a fast. Don't stop drinking water though, because that can be dangerous, and you probably don't want to do that. So keep drinking water, but stop eating, and then just keep yourself awake. Like if you stay awake for like over 24 hours, this has been my experience, and it's often used to treat suicidal patients as well. Stay awake for over 24 hours. That will often reduce the extreme depression. Doesn't work for everybody, but it does work for a lot of people. So that can be worth a try too. The key thing is to just, fight it as long as you can. They're always doing new stuff. See if you can find stuff to at least alleviate the pain, and don't just struggle with the stuff on your own. Like if there's particular thoughts that you don't want to share that are making you suicidal, you don't have to share those thoughts. Don't worry about that shit. But actually feeling suicidal, the suicidal feelings by themselves, that you don't have to suffer with on your own. And there are resources out there, and just do whatever you can. Focus on finding those resources, finding like the support you do, because, whatever happens, you want to know that you at least tried. Because if you're in the U.S. or in any Western country, there is sources out there, and it's at least worth a shot. That's all for now, and I'll see you in the next.